Welcome to week 15. It is Deep in the Stripes, the sickest Bengals podcast around. I'm your host, Elise Jesse. We've got so much to talk about going into this upcoming game with the Tennessee Titans. I swear to you guys, I have never written so many notes about a special teams unit in my entire career. My 10 plus years covering the NFL, I've never had to write this much about a special teams unit. We are going to talk about that. We're going to get into the keys of the game. We're going to talk a little bit. Sometimes I feel I'm like, am I covering the NFL or am I covering like the Real Housewives? What would they be? They wouldn't be housewives, obviously, but there's so much drama associated with these teams, and it's just something that you just would not expect going in, but it happened. So we will get into all of that. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of stuff. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, guys, I guess to start, we have to get the injury status out of the way. Orlando Brown Jr. will not be playing against Tennessee, and neither will Sheldon Rankins. That's according to Zach Taylor. And then Joe Burrow, has been on the injury report really all season just because of that wrist, but he's fully participated all season. However, he is dealing with a significant amount of knee soreness from, honestly, you can peg it on last week's game, but I really personally think that it's just the accumulation of being hit over and over and over again, like he has been. So dealing with some knee soreness there and going against an interesting team this week. Interesting is, I guess, a polite way to say it. Well, there are a lot of ties between these two teams. Obviously, Brian Callahan, former offensive coordinator here in Cincinnati. You got Chidobe Awuzie. Gosh, the Cincinnati Bengals would have loved to have him in the locker room this season in hindsight. Tyler Boyd is also playing for Tennessee. A long time Bengal. I personally miss Tyler Boyd in this locker room. He always had just gems of interesting quotes to give out. Kind dude, really cool. He's also on the other side of the ball. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. Chidobe Awuzie coming back from IR. He got a pick last week, so that'll be interesting because he obviously practiced a lot against Joe Burrow in his time in Cincinnati. So I feel like he might have a better understanding than most of Joe Burrow's tendencies and also Jamar Chase's tendencies and how he likes to play and that connection there and how they anticipate where the other one's going to be and how the other one's going to throw the ball. So I think he might be a factor in that. Let's start this off by talking about Tee Higgins for a second, because we all heard Joe Burrow give a shining endorsement of Tee Higgins like he always does. But for him to come out and say he seemed like he wants to figure out a way to keep Tee Higgins on this roster. And then a few days later, isn't it strange that news breaks that Tee Higgins and his agent, David Mulligetta, part ways? That's interesting to me. And Tee Higgins is now with, let me just make sure that I'm saying the name right because this is a big deal. His new agent is from Alliance Sports Management, Caitlin Aoki. And that would be Jamar Chase's agent. I think that's interesting. Both of them with the same agent. Maybe he can figure out a way to work with the Cincinnati front office to keep the two receivers that Joe Burrow wants in Cincinnati. It'll be interesting to see. The other portion of drama, obviously very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate for Joe Burrow. And I put this out on Twitter, and there were some people, y'all are crazy. Y'all are crazy if you're going to sit here and tell me, oh, he's fine, he makes $55 million. He's still a human being. He doesn't deserve any of this crap. He He doesn't deserve to have his house blasted all over the internet and the television. That is such BS, especially for a guy who is as private as Joe Burrow, who likes to keep his circle close, who literally hangs out at his house with Jamar Chase most days, I believe. And I don't know, would you want to come home at like 5 a.m. from a really long game? You're sore, you're like limping around because your knee is all sore and swollen. You get home to find out that like one of your bedroom windows has been busted in, your house ransacked, like your house is now all over everywhere, and like your private life is now being leaked out all over. Like, is that something you would want to come home to? I wouldn't want to deal with that. I would not want to deal with that at all. And then you're like, you come home and then you've got reporters and media cameras like all outside your house. Like, oh man, that sounds brutal. Especially for a guy like him who does not even like the Cincinnati Bengals social media team to take his picture. That's how private he doesn't want any part of it. He's not the guy who needs any of that. Like I feel bad for the guy. I know he makes $55 million, but he should be making a handsome amount of money, as I've said before, because his talents supersede everybody else almost in the world. So if you are the best in the world at something, I feel like you should be compensated as such. You still don't deserve to have cameras all over. You still don't deserve to have your private life if you don't want your private life exposed. You still deserve to have your house blasted everywhere. Like I think on one thing I saw like his address was posted. Come on. It's not just Joe Burrow. Like most players, even like I remember Andrew Whitworth when he went to the Rams, and then suddenly his house was leaked everywhere. His poor wife, Melissa, was at home with their 4 babies. And Whit was in LA and she's like, oh my God, my house is like all over the internet. What all over TV? What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do? That's a scary situation for somebody who is in the public eye, because we all know that like you and I wouldn't go to their house. You and I don't give a crap where they live. But there are people who don't have all of their motors running. Being kind. So yeah, you're going to worry about that a little bit, especially if you are someone who is in the public eye and you make a lot of money and you do not need certain aspects of your life exposed. So that sucks for Joe Burrow. Not only does that all happen, they're also in a short week and then he's got to leave town again. So, and the fact that he had police detail at his house when that happened, what is going on? Is someone getting fired? I'm not for like calling for people's jobs, but that is just a weird situation in my opinion. You have police detail at your house and it still gets broken into. What? I would be fuming if that were me. Fuming. All right, on to football. Tennessee. They held Mac Jones 23-31 passing. He had 0 touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions. But as you and I both know, Joe Burrow and Mac Jones are very different quarterbacks. In every single category. Yes, very different quarterbacks. I actually think that Joe Burrow, he is on a subpar team because of the defense. He really should be the MVP of the 2024 season. That's my opinion. And I don't think that's me being biased. Like if you do look at the numbers, his numbers speak for themselves. He should be the MVP of the 2024 season. That's how I feel about it. What am I worried about for JB going into this game? Obviously, the offensive line has had protection issues. He has been hit way too many times. You got Jeffrey Simmons coming in, 6'4", 305. He's got 4 sacks in the year. But I think he would love to get his hands on Joe Burrow. Take him down. I mean, everybody else has. Might as well have a day, right? That's probably how he's going in, looking at it. Let's put this graphic up because I want to see if you guys, let me know in the comments, because I want to see if you guys notice the first thing I did. So when I see the stats, the first thing that jumps out to me on this screen, all the way down at the bottom, is passing defense, where the Titans rank first, only giving up 175.5 yards per game. And I'm like, wow, really great pass defense. But then your eye, like, you travel up and then you see points allowed and the Titans rank 27th. And you're like, wait, how can you be number one in pass defense, but then points allowed is 27th? What? Rushing, they're about average. Rush defense, they're about average. So then that brought me to, okay, this doesn't compute. It's probably the same thing for people who don't watch Cincinnati Bengals football all the time. And then they hear that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are like having historic career years. And then they look at their record and they're like, that doesn't make sense. It's probably about the same thing. So this will be interesting. Obviously, Chidobe Awuzie is back. I think that will be a big factor in the pass game. I also think that we'll see something interesting, I think, just because with Joe Burrow dealing with that knee soreness, like how much can he climb the pocket? How much can he scramble? What is it going to be like in those situations? Which, if you watch Cincinnati Bengals football, you know that Joe Burrow is running for his life on most plays. So I am interested to see how that shakes out for them. You could be like, all right, give Chase Brown the ball. Okay, well, that could be a good idea. Except Tennessee's pass rush last week was pretty dang good. You talk about the Bengals pass rush also. That's going to have I think that's one of the keys to the game, honestly, in this one. If you're going to give who's it? Rico Dowdle. If you're going to let him average 7.3 yards per carry, you can't just assume that the Bengals are going to stop the run with Tennessee. Like, I'm not confident in that they're going to stop the run. I would hope to see them stop the run, but I don't know if they will. That's one of my keys to the game, is stopping the run. Make sure Tony Pollard doesn't run all over you. Last week, he had 102 rush yards on 21 carries, so they need to take care of that. Pass rush is also another key. The Titans have given up the third most sacks in the league, so Trey Hendrickson, you expect him to have a big day? I also would love to see Joseph Osai get a sack in his fourth straight game. I have really enjoyed watching him play the last few weeks. I feel like he was like on this upward trajectory, and then all of a sudden he like plateaued, and now he's like going back up again. Like, I feel like his development, obviously no one's development is going to be a perfect, upwards line. But I have enjoyed watching him develop this season as well. I enjoy watching him have success. I really like him as a person, and I think he's talented. So I would like to see him get maybe 1-2 sacks on Sunday on Will Levis. Speaking of Will Levis, the mayonnaise king, I don't trust anybody who puts mayonnaise in their coffee. And I don't remember if he came out and said that he doesn't actually do it. That's just so weird. Every time I hear the name Will Levis, or I see Will Levis's face, I instantly think, you're the weirdo that puts mayonnaise in his coffee. It's the first thing I think. And for me, like, I make the mayonnaise that my family eats by hand. So I'm like, what kind of weirdo puts raw egg and oil and salt in their coffee? Not me. I like to keep those things separate. That's me personally. The other key, the third key of this game for me is special teams. I told you I've never written so many notes about a special teams unit in my life. Let's run through it just so you guys can get the full picture, because it is absolutely ridiculous. Now, you got to exclude Nick Folk from this because he's at, I believe, 95% on his field goals, which puts him near the top as far as accuracy goes. So he has been great. So he is totally excluded from this entire thing. Tennessee's coverage unit is trash. Their punt protection is trash. They fumble in the return game. They have not been good in this phase, and I believe this has contributed to a significant portion of their losses on the season, and it started with week 1 against the Chicago Bears. They had a punt blocked, and then they allow a 67-yard return. Lost that game. Week 2, New York Jets. New York blocked the punt with only 4 rushers, so that gave them a short field, and they kicked field goal. Week 8 against the Lions, the Titans allowed a 72 kick return by Khalil Dorsey and a 64-yard punt return. Oh, and a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown in that game. They also fumbled a return in that game. That game was disastrous for them. Week 10, LA Chargers, the Titans allowed Darius Davis a kickoff return of 56 yards and set up a touchdown. Week 12 against the Texans, they actually won this game. Allowed an 80-yard kick return by Damian Pierce on the opening play. They also muffed on a fourth-quarter punt in that game. There's more. Week 13, Washington. Jaquan Jackson fumbles a kickoff. Washington recovers. That led to a score. If you know anything about Darren Simmons, he is licking his chops. He is really excited for this game, I would imagine. You really don't. Special teams is kind of like one of those areas of football where you don't even pay much attention to it unless there's a big play that comes from that portion of the game. And for the Tennessee Titans, most of those big plays in that phase of the game have been negative. So they have struggled. They give teams short fields. And the Cincinnati Bengals love that. They'll take that all day long. Any team would take that all day long. So when you are, and I think this has a lot to do for Tennessee. This has a lot to do with the fact that they have a lot of young players on special teams. At least that's what they have attributed their disastrous play on special teams to, is the fact that they have young, inexperienced players on special teams. But I also, for me, with the Cincinnati Bengals, if you're trying to make the roster, like maybe you're a guy on the bubble, the way that you make the team and you're able to keep your job on the team for a lot of guys is through special teams. If you contribute on special teams, it doesn't matter if you are an undrafted free agent. It doesn't matter if, you're brand new, you're a 6th round pick, 5th, 3rd, doesn't matter. If you contribute on special teams, you have a path onto Cincinnati's roster. Darren Simmons is one of the coaches from the reviews, I guess, that I've gotten from players. He is one of the guys that is able to, yes, he's very, very intense, but he is also one of the guys who is able to connect with players really, really well. And he's able to get a lot out of his guys. So I don't think that you can just blame it on youth. I think you also have to look at a coach's ability to get the most out of their players. So I'm not trying to throw a stray at Colt, but Darren Simmons is a very talented special teams coach. So I do think that will be a factor in Sunday's game. That will be super, super interesting, at least for me to watch. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to. At last check, the Cincinnati Bengals were the 5-point favorites. I believe the over-under was 47.5. I think the Bengals will have the potential to score 30 plus, but it does really depend on Joe Burrow's health and his mobility, I think. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals defense could use this as a get right game. The Titans have only scored 30 points twice this season. And before this season, they had not, I think they went They didn't score 30 points in a single game last year. They didn't score 30 points in a single game in 2022. And then I think it was week 17, they scored 30 on Miami in 2021. And they went all that time without even hitting 30 points in a single game until this year, week 4, again, against Miami. So I don't expect them to put up a lot of points, but honestly, we would need to see the Cincinnati Bengals tackle well for that. We would need to make sure that Tony Pollard does not bust down the field for 21 yards like he did last week. We will need to see them contain him for sure. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. That's what I'm looking at. I am just at this point, you are just hoping that Joe Burrow can make it through another game healthy. He's already banged up. Not banged up. I don't want to say banged up, but he's already feeling the accumulation of the hits. And that can be something that inhibits some of what he might naturally want to do, like we've seen in the past. So I'll be interested to see how he handles that and how the Cincinnati Bengals game plan around that. If they use Chase Brown a little bit more, I really loved the Cincinnati Bengals approach to Jamar Chase last week, the way that they were able to get Jamar different looks, and he ran different routes, but they're also dealing with Brian Callahan, who is at the helm of the Titans. So he already knows what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are capable of. And from what I understand, Callie and Zach Taylor are good friends. They talk all the time. I'm sure they're probably not talking this week, but they are very close friends. And one thing, if you're a Titans fan and you're watching this game or this show, and you are one of the people who is so frustrated by the Titans and I know that there have been coaching situations that some of these games have come down to for Tennessee, but just remember, Zach Taylor's first 2 years were abysmal in the league. Callie is a first-time head coach. He's going to have some growing pains. He's still trying to, Zach Taylor flipped the roster from Marvin Lewis. So Callie is still probably trying to get players in to the building that he thinks fit his system as well. So I would just say, if you're frustrated, I think Callie is going to end up being a really good coach, head coach in the league. Give it a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. I know you guys have been patient for a really long time. Just give it a little bit more patience, and I think you guys will eventually get there. This will be, it's again, it's not like we're talking about playoffs, really. There's nothing, Bengals aren't mathematically eliminated, but it's not like they have this like very clear, easy path to the playoffs either. So I'm just, again, hoping for what I was hoping for last week, which is entertaining football. I want to see fun football. I want to see a fun product. I want to be entertained because that's what NFL football is. A loss, a win. A win would maybe help. Well, they would definitely help their playoff chances, but those are still very, very slim. I'm kind of indifferent on a win or a loss. I think the Bengals do win, though. I think they can beat the Titans. But as far as if I want them to win or not, okay. I don't think it matters all that much, to be honest with you. But I will be watching that game. I will have the full breakdown on Monday Monday afternoon, and we're going to talk about it. As far as this game, one question that has been on my mind lately: is Sheldon Rankins okay? I know he's dealing with a sickness, but what's am I being too nosy, wondering if he is actually okay? What is the sickness? What is going on with him? The Bengals forked up $12 million for him. I am very curious about that situation. I feel like there has not been a lot to come out of that. So I am hoping to hear more information on what's going on with him, because if he's not okay, I hope that they find a path to get him better, whatever he's dealing with, but we shall see. Also, Orlando Brown Jr. He would make a difference. He would make a difference for Joe Burrow, at least on Sundays. he would aid in Joe Burrow's ability to stay healthy. So you hope that Orlando Brown Jr. can eventually get healthy. All right, that's all I got. Thank you for being here. As always, we appreciate you. We appreciate the fact that you are willing to come in and hang out and sit and talk football with me. Any other comments, any other thing that I missed, just let me know in the comments and then we will chat about it. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.